Good morning, Delta. How are you today?
Oh, I'm very good, thank you. Bye then.
Good morning, Kieran.
Hello.
Good morning, Bike. Hello.
Or most of a bike.
Most of a bike. What are we doing today, Kieran?
The Headstock bearings.
The Headstock bearings. The bike's where we left it, more or less. The front end is mostly deconstructed. Bars are still on, forks are still on, wheels are still on. We're going to do the bearings, which are here and here. You can do this job with all the lights and clocks and everything attached. I have done that. I have done that, in fact, on the GT750, which is quite heavy at the front. So it is possible with the bike all mostly together. But luckily, we have stripped this thing down. We are going to strip it down further just because it's fun that way. So we're going to take the bars off, the wheel off, we'll take the forks out, and then you can get a really good look at the Headstock bearings. Here's Kieran then taking off the wheel. Using all his strength. The side nearest to us is 14mm and the side furthest away from us is 19mm. So we're going to withdraw the... what then is it called? It's totally slipped my mind.
The front drive shaft bar.
The drive shafty bar job. I don't know why that's just eluded me. Anyway, we're going to take it out. That thing. There she is. Obviously there's nothing attached, no caliper or anything like that, so that just pulls straight out. Kieran is now taking out the forks. Again, as I've mentioned, not really entirely necessary to do this job, but hey, we're doing it anyway.
We're all about unnecessary.
We're all about the unnecessary. So there's the 4 bolts. Could you please point those out, Kieran? 1, 2, 3, 4. What size is it?
Well, if our good friend Lucy's anything to go by, it's I think an 8.8.
No, they are in fact 12mm bolts. Right, with those 12mm loosened, you don't need to remove them. The fork should slide out thusly. So there's one.
And away she goes.
And there's the other. Excellent work. Right, let's take the handlebars off. That's they're what? 10mm. They're 10mm on those. So with those 10mm nuts there released, you can take the clamps off the top. What was it?
Bolts.
Apologies, bolts. Yeah, you get this nice little ram's horn effect. Boop. Take that off. Right. We can see very clearly now the top and bottom steering yokes, and the bearings are in here and up here. So the next step is this ginormous nut here. Let's see what size that is. There we are, I did that by hand.
Yep.
Definitely didn't use that breaker bar. It was a 30mm. So we're just going to unwind, windy. So Kieran is now about to take that off. There's the little plastic cap on the top which came off when we unwound the nut. There's the nut.
Somewhat crusty.
A little bit crusty in there, but we're not quite down to the bearings yet anyway. So here's a giant washer. Fingers! Have you got better fingernails than me?
Just one for these such purposes.
He's got the old mechanic's fingernail. Yep. And then now, let's see. Right, the old top yoke was proving a little bit stubborn. There's nothing left holding it on other than rust. So we're just using a rubber mallet to tap. And it is coming off. It is coming off. So there we are. There's the top yoke free. Which now reveals this thing here. You can see there are 4 little notches there. That's a lock ring. So we need to slacken that off, and then all the bearings are underneath there. so bear with us. Cool beans. Right, so where were we? We've got this top piece here, so Kieran's holding the bottom yoke. That should just spin off, at least this one did, by hand. Underneath there are a whole bunch of ball bearings, and down at the bottom there are a whole bunch of ball bearings. So we've got a couple of pots here for the top and the bottom bearings, and we're going to try to catch these things as they come out. So let's have a look. What do we have? We have
a collection of balls.
A collection of balls. So there are the top balls. Shall we just work on the top balls while we're here?
Let's work on the top balls.
Okay, I'll just put that over there. Right, handy thing to have, if I can find it, is
Magnets.
a little magnet, a little pickup tool. Watch. Balls have come free.
Sounds like a interesting artifact. The balls have come free.
Easy to do this with one hand. Slippery balls in one hand and camera in the other.
Just like your adult entertainment days.
I'm out of practice.
Couple more to collect.
So that's it. So that's all the top ones. So Kieran should now be able to lower that out. Let me get a good angle of that. And I've given him the hard job because these are all the ones that are going to fall out. Yeah, I have my magnet just in case.
Yeah, I've got my hand ready to cup the balls, should I need to.
Can you see them all there? Look.
This is
It is tricky, isn't it?
top
Slippy
notch
balls
stuff.
in
I'll
one
just
hand.
leave a couple on there, you know.
Dropped a few anyways, dropped a few balls.
Some in hand, some on the end of the magnet. I think.
We've got them all anyway.
I think,
Excellent. So that lowers out of there, and that's the end of that part. So we're going to count these balls, make sure we've got the same amount for both, and then move on. There you are. I won't ruin the surprise. You guys can count them. Nah, not really. 18. 18 in here. My balls aren't as neat as Kieran's, but Kieran's got 18 balls. I've got 18 balls. So what you need to do now is inspect your balls, and what you're looking for is any rust, corrosion, any pitting, anything that makes them anything other than perfectly round balls. And then you need to clean those with degreaser if you're going to reuse them. They are quite cheap, so if you want to just replace them, that's cool. I think on some of the older CG125s, there are more than 18 balls. I can't quite remember, but 21's in my head somewhere. Anyway, we've got 18. They seem like slightly larger balls than the older ones. So 18, we're going to clean those. We're up here. You can see we've got quite a funky race there. So we're going to clean that, and the bit that we've put over there that was on the top, we're going to clean up there. It won't focus, but there we are. We're going to clean up there, and then we're going to clean the bit that's attached to the yoke there. So we're going to get everything perfectly spotless, and then we're going to check that again for rust, corrosion, pitting, anything that stops that being anything other than a perfectly smooth surface for those balls to roll on. So that's what we'll do now. Everything is now clean. The race there is clean, same at the bottom. Did this one that's on the yoke.
Shiny.
The removable one. This lock ring is a little bit corroded, but that's just aesthetic. That has no effect on the bearings. That's just covering them up, and I can live with that just as an aesthetic thing. So that's fine. Bearings all cleaned up nicely. There's no deformed ones, nothing missing, no rust. As I say, same with the bearings. We've cleaned it all up. You can run your finger around. You can use your fingernail to feel for any pitting or cracks or anything like that, but everything seems to be ship shape. So we're going to put these back together now. So we've got some grease and we've got our ball bearings. So what we're going to do, we're going to put some grease in here and then put our 18 ball bearings in, and the grease will hold those in place. Then we'll do the same at the bottom, bit more tricky because obviously gravity is against us on the bottom, and then we start putting things back together, so we'll do that now. You can see now then that we've got all 18 ball bearings in there with grease holding them in. So that's the top one done. I'll put this little jobby on. Obviously that goes...
Are we needing to add any additional grease onto that?
Well, do you want to put a bit of grease on my ring, Kieran?
Yep, just finger around the rim there.
You want to avoid putting too much grease in the bearings. Who knows what too much is? I'm sure somebody does. I think just don't go absolutely crazy. Excellent, so that's the top done. We're going to move on and do the bottom, and we'll show you how we put that back together in a second. So, the ball bearings are now greased and in position on the bottom yoke. So Kieran is going to carefully...
Be suggestive.
Yeah. God, we're so childish. Slot that up in there. We're greased up in there as well. So I've got to get that all the way through and out the top there with all the bearings and everything in place. And then while you hold that there, I'll take this thing and
engage. Is there a particular tension we need to be aiming for there?
there is a particular tension we need to be aiming at there. So the idea is that if you were to grab this and try and move it up and down in this direction, it doesn't click. So if I slacken that off, sorry Kieran, if I slacken that right off so it's incorrectly adjusted, you can see that that is moving up and down, which is not what you want. So the idea is that you tighten it down enough so that you've got free and easy movement left to right. There's no resistance, it's not tight, but then when you try and move it up and down, there's no clicking, as it were.
Clattering mess.
Yeah, there's no clattering mess as we just showed it. And that is correctly tensioned. I might just check that when I'm not filming it. But that's the idea. And then once you put everything back together, you would want to check that again just to be doubly sure, because as you add more things, i.e. the big chrome nut at the top, that can also compress in this direction and make the bearings too tight. So for now that's okay, I think. I'm going to check that. But then once we've put the top nut back on and all the rest of it, I'll check it again for the same thing. We're checking to make sure there's no play up and down, but that we've got nice free movement left to right. Just had a look at that while I wasn't filming it, just to check that tension. We had slightly over tightened it, and though we'd not got any play up and down, what was happening is as it was coming towards the left and the right extremes, it was kind of offering a little bit of resistance. It was maybe pinching a little bit, and if you're quite sensitive, you can also feel the action of it clicking over the ball bearing. So it's like as it goes over the ball bearings. So we've slackened that off ever so slightly, which means now there's no resistance at all left to right, but there's also no play up and down. So that is what it should feel like. And as I mentioned before, once we've got things back together, we need to check that again, because that will probably change when we add more things in. But that is what you're aiming at. The bearings are back together then. Kieran's cleaning up just that washer there. So next step is top yoke is going back on.
There we go.
Then a washer.
Line that up. And
then the big old chrome top nut.
So you can see.
So this is where things might change with the bearings, and after we've tightened this up, we need to check for the movement and the play and all of that again. So we'll get this done and come back to you. Okay, so we put the top nut back on there. Before we tighten that up, we are going to put the forks back in, because as you can see, the top and the bottom yokes are well capable of moving independently. So we're going to put the forks back in to make sure they're lined up nicely, and then we'll tighten up the top nut. As you can see, the forks are back in now, which makes sure that the yokes are lined up, and it also means that we can pop it onto its steering lock nicely and tighten up the top nut there. That needs to be 54 foot-pounds, which is 73 Newton meters. So that, using the torque wrench, is now 73 Newton meters, and Kieran is checking it for movement. So this is where I said you need to check it again. So with that set correctly at 73 Newton meters, we've still got free movement left to right. There's no notchiness, no grinding, nothing like that. And there's still no up and down play. So that, my friends, is correctly adjusted. Okay, the wheels back on. As you can see, we've put the handlebars back on, and just for funsies, we've put them the wrong way around at this point because we're taking all this off again later. Kieran's just temporarily tightening these. Just a note on tightening these: if you tighten, for example, this one, can't see, all the way down, and then this one, what's going to happen is that top clamp's going to lean forwards like that, and it's not correct. So what you need to do on each one is do a little bit on this, little bit on this one, and just keep moving backwards and forwards so that it clamps down flush, or at least level, with the thing that it's clamping down onto, and it's not leaning one way or the other. And obviously the same on this side, so just moving from front to back to try and make sure that the clamp goes down evenly over the bars. Yeah, that's that. So that's us back together, right back where we started, with the wheel on, forks on, handlebars on. I still need to take the forks out. We're going to do the fork oil seals when they arrive. So this front end's not finished yet, but for now, that's where it needs to be. The next job is probably going to be this caliper. I have already started stripping this caliper and also putting it back together. Unfortunately, I damaged one of the seals in there when I was doing that, so I've had to order some more. So even though I started this job first, the video will be coming afterwards. Sorry for the confusion, but that's it for now. Shall we go and get a cup of tea?
I think cup of tea.
I think it's cup of tea time. Bye for now then.